going to call the meeting to order at 3:05. If you can please take the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Sorman. I will go ahead and take roll call. Chair Sorman.
Here.
Vice Chair Spieler.
Here.
Board Member Coots.
Here.
Board Member Langhorne is absent. Board Member Maloney.
Here.
And Board Member Marston.
Here.
Perfect. We have quorum. Thank you.
Alright, so do we have any members of the public that want to make a public comment on any item that is not on this agenda? No. Did we want to bring this up then in terms of our next meeting? Okay. So we are making a request for the next appeals board meeting to take a look at construction costs. So we can just put that in the minutes. So that is the only thing that's new business. Right. So going on to item number 2, which is approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was on 8/7/2025. First of all, do we have any comments with the board members regarding the minutes? Have you had a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you have then, is someone willing to make a motion to?
So moved.
You moved? Okay, so.
John Maloney will second.
All right. So can we call for a vote?
Thank you. I'll take the vote. Chair Sorman.
Yes.
Mr. Marston.
Yes.
Board Member Maloney.
Aye.
Board Member Coots.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Spieler.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Do we have any announcement from staff or from other board members? No? No. Okay.
Just a question for Tina. Can you send out the new stuff that we didn't get?
You're referring to the ordinance changes for the triennial code update? Yes, Diego will be sending that to each board member directly.
All right, so then we're going on to the item that's on our agenda, which is the continuation of the ratification of the hardship for 1165 Coast Village Road. So if you can please present your information.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and board members. So this is a continuation of the 1165 Coast Village Road path to travel ratification for hardship. I'll go through it again for those members that were not here, so they can benefit from that as well. A little bit of the project description. The scope of work for this permit consists of a tenant improvement of an existing 3,407 square foot single tenant office space to create 3 separate office suites, and there are no exterior changes proposed. The cost of providing access, because the construction valuation was more than the threshold, $203,611, it's required that full path to travel compliance be provided, unless there is an unreasonable hardship. For the project, since the project above is above the threshold, the obligation is to spend a minimum of 20% of that adjusted construction cost. In this case, the construction cost is $350,000, so that would be $70,000 that needs to be spent at a minimum towards path to travel improvements. The applicant has already committed to spending $82,900 towards accessibility improvements, and that includes path to travel from the on-site accessible parking stalls to each entrance of the areas of alteration, which constitute 23% of the cost of construction. All elements within the area of alteration will be compliant with accessibility requirements as required by Chapter 11B of the California Building Code. That includes accessible parking, path to travel from the accessible parking stalls to the entrance, circulation within the tenant space where work is being proposed, and the restrooms serving the altered tenant spaces. Full compliance with the path to travel requirements would necessitate installing an elevator or a lift to provide access from the right-of-way along Coast Village Road to the lower level areas of alterations. Since the site constraints do not make the installation of an elevator or lift infeasible, the applicant has explored the option to provide an exterior lift as a more affordable solution. And as directed by the board from the previous meeting on August 7, 2025, the applicant has also explored the option to provide a ramp along the existing driveway on the west side of the site. So with that, the updated cost of anticipated construction that is contemplated, the project has an estimated construction cost of $350,000. The proposed lift solution would add an additional $262,800 for a grand total of $612,000. That would be 175% of the original project budget. The proposed ramp solution would add an additional $219,306 for a grand total of $569,306, or 163% of the original budget. The impact of the code mandated access improvements on the financial feasibility of the project. If a lift was to be provided, the $268,800 costs of the required accessibility improvements represents an additional 75% of the original cost of construction, and a total of 98% towards accessibility improvements when you combine it with a 23% already committed for accessibility improvements. If a ramp was to be provided, the $219,306 cost of the required accessibility improvements represents an additional 63% of the original cost of construction, for a total of 86% when you combine it with the 23% that's already been committed. So for the nature of accessibility which would be gained or lost by granting the hardship, the site will continue to have accessible on-site arrival access by means of one accessible van parking stall and one standard parking stall. The stalls will be on an accessible route that will lead to the areas of alteration. As far as the nature of use of the facility under construction and its ability to persons with disabilities, the existing office campus at 1165 Coach Village Road has direct accessible access to all upper level services directly from Coach Village Road Public Way. Accessible access to all lower level services will continue to be provided using accessible parking stalls and compliant accessible routes at each entry to the altar tenant spaces. Currently, there are exterior stairs as shown in Exhibit A, providing access from the lower level to the upper level. The existing exterior stairs connecting the lower part of the accessible path of travel as defined by the Corner Building Code, and there's some definitions below which we'll go over. Therefore, the stairs are not required to be upgraded as part of the path of travel improvements. The definitions for path of travel is defined as an identifiable accessible route within an existing site, building, or facility by means of which a particular area may be approached, entered and exited, and which connects particular area with an exterior approach, including sidewalks, streets, and parking areas, an entrance to the facility and other parts of the facility. When alterations, structural repairs, or additions are made to the existing buildings or facilities, the term path of travel also includes toilet and bathing facilities, telephones, and drinking fountains, signs that serve that area of work. For the accessible route that was mentioned in path of travel, there's a definition as follows: a continuous unobstructed path connecting an accessible element in spaces on an accessible site, building, or facility that can be negotiated by a person with a disability using a wheelchair, and that is also safe for and usable by persons with any other disabilities. Interior accessible routes may include corridors, hallways, floors, ramps, elevators, and lifts. Exterior accessible routes may include parking, access aisles, curb ramps, crosswalks in a vehicular way, walks, and ramps and lifts. So in summary, the recommendation to the board is to considering the above, the building official recommends ratification of the request for hardship and eliminating the elevator or lift or the accessible ramp upgrades. And the exhibits are listed as well as they have been distributed to the board members. So that ends my staff report, and I welcome any questions the board may have.
So we want to wait, you got this outline, so should we wait after the applicant makes their presentation, or is it appropriate to ask questions now?
If you're asking me the question, Madam Secretary, I would advise that maybe you hear them out, and that way you have the whole picture, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, then we'll do that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and board members. I am Marie Evans Schumacher, agent for the owner. This is the architect of record, Mark R. Kellogg. We do have some supplemental plans that I would like to pass out. And there's one person that needed larger scale. Okay. And Chair Swordman, one of those is ours. Thank you.
Do these replace the other group?
Pardon me?
Do these replace the old ones I have here?
So let me just show you, that might be unnecessary. All that we've done here is we have colored the top of travel, we've colored the area of work that would need to be revised for the lift. We have colored the ramp, so we've just added some color, and then we have some photographs if we need to reference them. And yes, so just so everybody can hear, for the 3 site plans and the enlarged ramp plan, we have added color for you to be able to easily identify the area that needs to be modified to make it accessible. And then we also have a sheet with photographs if we need to reference them, if you have any questions. We thought that would be easy. And then you already have in your set the A0.05 you've seen, that has not changed. And then the enlarged restroom plan and elevations has also not changed. So, Board Member Marston, you probably don't need those unless you want to reference the color in the photographs. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to start with sheet 5. And this is Suite I. That's the tenant improvement. As was mentioned, it is 3,477 square feet, and we are making 3 spec suites that are 1,000 plus. Each suite has an accessible restroom. So we have a restroom here, an accessible restroom here. We have an accessible restroom here. You're all following my pointer, right? Okay, and then we have an accessible restroom here. And then we show you the exiting route for each of the suites here. We've got the correct plumbing count and all of that. So if we go to the enlarged restrooms, this was a question the last time about the restrooms. So you can see that we have our turning radius, we have all of our clearances, we have the accessible heights that are required for all of the restrooms. It's clearly spelled out on this sheet. Is that clear to everyone this time, or do we need to address any questions about the accessible restrooms? Anyone? No? Okay. So we'll go back to the site plans. This original site plan, where we are spending the $82,900, is in this area. And what was done in the past, for instance, for this suite here, the Sotheby's space, is we had to add these 1x1 pavers to create a slope that is 5% max. And that is what we would do to get a visitor from these accessible stalls into this particular suite here. There's also, we don't have the proper pull side on this door, and a planter has to be modified. We also have to modify this area for the proper slope, and then we're also adding toe kicks to all of these doors here. So that would be a total of 5 10-inch minimum toe kicks there. So that is how we're spending our 20%. If we go, any questions on this sheet? No? Thank you. If we go to the lift site plan, what would need to happen for this option is that we would have to smooth out and have and modify all of this flagstone, again, in keeping with the 5% maximum slope. We would also need to open up the guardrail here along Coast Village Road. We would need to modify the retaining wall. There would be drainage issues. I don't know if you want me to read to you everything that would need to happen in this scenario. Has everybody already read the scope, or would you like me to go through it?
I read through the scope. Does anyone need an explanation about that? No? Okay.
Okay. And this is the cost of this option, as you know, that was just mentioned, is $262,800. So last time we were asked to provide a ramp option, which we have done. Again, we're keeping our path of travel here in both scenarios. We are doing that for sure, the blue. And then we've provided you with this ramp plan. What it does is it makes the drive, as you know, go from a two-way drive to a one-way drive. And the cost of this option is $219,306. So again, if we take the path of travel that we're already, that scope that we're already doing, plus the ramp, we're at 86% of the construction valuation. And just to go back to our lift option, we're at 98%, which is almost double. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why does it go from two-way to one-way traffic? Did you make the sidewalk much larger, wider?
No, so this has to be a minimum of 20 feet. And when we put the ramp here, we don't have that for the fire department.
But there's a sidewalk here now. Are you using that sidewalk, or are you expanding the sidewalk?
So for our ramp, we're actually using part of the driveway.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it's a wider sidewalk than yours is now. Is that correct?
There's, right. So there's not a sidewalk. This is all, let me go back to the original site plan.
There is a sidewalk there now.
It's not 5 feet wide.
Oh, so it's wider.
Correct.
We're widening it. Okay.
I think it's 5 feet wide.
And why do you have to widen it? Just curious.
For the minimum width of the ramp. So our landings have to be 5 by 5, right? And so we are keeping, so that automatically makes it so that we have to go one way because the fire department requires 20 feet.
How wide is the sidewalk that's there now?
The sidewalk that is there now is,
It's 1910 minus 17.9. It's about 3 feet.
That's 3?
So we're widening by
Okay.
nearly 2 feet.
So I have a couple questions about that. So the code does allow for that, if you've got site constraints, the building official would have to approve that, to go less than 4 feet, up to 3 feet. Did you ask that question?
So how can we do that with handrails though?
Well, I mean, you can be less, it could be that it's 3.6, and then on this plan, is there the ability to, instead of going out into the driveway?
Don't our landings have to be 5 by 5?
Yes, but I'm saying, in some instances, you could go towards the building with the landing rather than the other way. So there are a couple of things that we can take a look at. And I know that, just from planting it, sometimes for commercial driveways, those would be allowed to be a little bit less than like 20 feet is optimal, but they have allowed exceptions, so I don't know if you asked them those questions.
So I think, so for instance, I hear what you're saying about the landing. This landing can't, this is a retaining wall, and this is a lower level here. So this one can't go in toward the building. And I think we're getting away from the hardship. So, I mean, this is 86% of the construction valuation for a 3,407 square foot tenant space.
Yeah, but there is no maximum. So when you are over the threshold, I mean, my recent residential construction was over 100% over estimate, so
Right.
this 86% is not substantial to me. So
Okay.
where's the hardship?
Okay, well, I am representing the owner, and it's financially infeasible for the owner when making an improvement to a 3,407 square foot space. And also, the owner does not want the liability of a ramp adjacent to a drive. That's, I mean,
Okay.
and
And can I ask, did you explore the possibility of bringing a ramp around on the Coast Village roadside where you were proposing the lift? Because this looks like a much longer path for a ramp, and it creates other traffic problems for
so are you talking about this side?
No, he's talking about the next one.
north on the, yeah, where you brought the lift down. Is it not possible to bring a ramp down in that area?
No, we don't have the run that we need.
Okay.
It's at least 12 feet.
It's greater than 12 feet.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Mhm.
I have a question. If that turns into a one-way path for vehicles, is that an inconvenience to the site? I mean, is that?
So, Mr. Quayman here, can you just raise your hand? So he's the property manager, and he manages the property next door, 1187 Coast Village Road. And they have a one-way drive, and people go two ways all the time. So can you please repeat your question? I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, yeah, I guess if it's a one-way drive, does that create an inconvenience?
Yes.
Okay.
Because people, it's not safe. People, I mean, Rob can tell you at the property next door, people use it as a two-way drive, even though it's a one-way drive. So it is very unsafe.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so it sounds like I don't need to tell you what needs to happen construction-wise in order to provide that ramp, correct? Everyone's read this? Okay. So, I don't think, does anyone have, I've got all these photographs, does anyone have any questions that they need visuals for? I can tell you, let me just go through these photos. So if we were to put a lift here, this tenant, that's what they would see outside of their window. Also, if we were to put a lift here, that obstructs the view of all of these tenants upstairs. The reason for showing you this photograph, this is where we are providing our path of travel, and it's a little difficult to see, but I think this photo here with this watermark and this water trail here can show you how uneven the pavers are, which was the reason for that. There's a big drop here as far as slope. So if we were going to do the lift option, all of this flagstone would need to come out. I think that's all. We just wanted to give you some visuals. So I don't even know, I mean, I think about going in front of the ABR with this lift as well, and this is a gorgeous Spanish style building. I just can't imagine them approving that personally, especially obstructing the tenant views and what it's going to do to the street view and all of that.
I think it's really, I guess, inappropriate to say that a view is more important than someone having access.
Amen.
So
Well,
I just want to put that out there. So
No,
The
but
reason-
it is something to consider.
The reason I said it, I did not say it for that reason, and I am grateful that you brought that up because I wouldn't want you to think I did. The reason I said that is because in the ABR's mind, I would think that the ramp would be the better option because they think about things like that. They do. Yeah.
Like the city allows you to be below a certain parking count if you're providing accessible parking spaces. So they're making concessions. So I would think, I'm not going to tell you I wouldn't present that as a reason for why you're wanting to justify that, that's all, it's just a little offensive.
But
Nothing else, that's all.
No, and I appreciate that, but that wasn't the reason. I wasn't putting aesthetics over accessibility. I was putting this option over another option. Okay.
In that second photo, you show the windows that would be blocked by a lift. But do you have a view of that lower area outside those windows between the big retaining wall and the building?
I think it's to the left of the fountain you see here in that third picture.
Left of the fountain?
Yes.
You can't see it. but
To
it's
the left
of
here.
Okay,
that.
yeah.
And you can see it through the window on the fourth photo. So in the fourth photo, we look through the window, the fountain is to your right. You can barely see the base of it there at the corner. The second painting on the bottom from the right, you can see the edge of the fountain. So that it's a nice blank wall that the lift would be on. But from Coast Village, you'd see the lift because it raises up
I
above.
get it. It just feels like that long retaining wall with the guardrail. Looks like there would be plenty of room for a long ramp, and depending on the width at the bottom, there might be room for the switchback. And you know, it seems like there's an opportunity to have a ramp here that's not in the path of the vehicle path.
Yes, you look at you can see it on the plan there.
I don't know what the elevation is.
The photo, it's pretty smooth.
So, again, being the agent for the owner, so this particular suite, again, I'm addressing the financial feasibility for the owner. This particular suite has been vacant for over 3 years. They have just lost, because of coming back to you with a ramp option, they have just lost 2 viable tenants that were going to sign 7-year leases. They don't want, like I said, they don't want the liability of a ramp adjacent to a drive. That is a liability for them. They also spent money on attorney fees to draft up leases. And it doesn't, when you take pen to paper for the owner to do a 3,000 square foot space and pay double the construction valuation, that is why we're here requesting a hardship.
Let me ask about this thing, you said the owner does not want to have a driveway next to the ramp, correct?
I want the ramp in the driveway.
The liability of that.
But what's the liability? You have a sidewalk next to the drive, and that's okay, but not a ramp next to the drive? I don't understand the difference.
Yeah, currently you have a walkway that people can walk down, that's the same separation.
They seem to be suggesting that disabled people are a bigger liability than the average
That's what
pedestrian.
I'm hearing, but I'd like to hear
Yeah.
from the people here. Why is a pedestrian okay to have next to a ramp, next to a driveway, but not a ramp?
So I think my words are being misconstrued. If a ramp is provided, then don't you, I mean, in my opinion, then it will be, if a ramp is provided, it will be used more often. So isn't that a greater liability?
If there's a ramp there now. It's a ramp from Coesville Road down.
It's a sidewalk,
Well,
but
but it's slow.
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So when people come to this site, they park in the parking lot, and then they enter the site that way. And if they're coming from Coast Village Road, they use that stair. That's the path of travel, the normal path of travel. So when this is provided, it will be used by more people, and it becomes more of a liability, because they either come from their cars and they go in the courtyard and then they go up that stair is how it's.
I mean, I don't agree with you. I mean, I think there's already a pathway from Coast Village Road down adjacent to your driveway that some people will use, and maybe someone who's disabled might try to maneuver that. There's no landings, it's hard.
Yes.
So you don't have a lot of traffic. I don't know that you're putting a ramp in is going to increase your traffic. People are sort of either park on the upper way and come down the stairs, or park and you come through the center.
I know, but I feel like my words are being misconstrued, because at the moment, a disabled person can't get from Coast Village Road to the lower level. So by providing a ramp, that will now be used, and that is more of a liability for the owner adjacent to a vehicular driveway.
Chair,
So I'm not.
If I may just interject, I just want to bring back to the attention of the request. It's a request for hardship because of the cost of these improvements and not really into the minutia of other potential liability. They're asking for a hardship request based on the cost of making this improvement or the lift. So I just want to try to focus us to that request.
Right, thank you for redirecting us.
Sure.
All right, so,
Yes.
I have been to the site, actually, I was invited by someone who was looking to lease it, so I know the inside of the building, and we walked, around to see what needed to be done, and my concern was accessibility, obviously. And so, if there's only a few sections in that blue area that you delineated that's going to be done regardless of what solution you use, there was only a small section that exceeded 5%. The rest of it was compliance. So I don't personally know why that entire area has to be redone, other than you wanted to clean it up. I'm not certain, but that was one thing that I wanted to point out. And then the other is, when you take a look at the cost of construction, I divided 350,000 by the 3,407. I get a construction cost of $102.72, which I think is low. When I look at dividing, I think it was the 66,770,000 that you, 66,770. I calculated, I kept the plan from the last meeting. There's about 532 square feet of patio that you're proposing to replace. That's at $125.38 cost of construction, which is more than what you're proposing for the tenant spaces. I know that the tenant spaces, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all have to be redone, so I think that $102 is low for cost of construction. And then when I look at the ramp when you multiply, I think it was about 400 square foot of ramp, it comes out to if I use $125 a square foot, if I use your higher one, that gives me a cost of $50,000 versus the number that you're using. So there's inconsistencies as what is being presented, and that's always been something that the board has struggled with, is that applicants tend to lower the cost of construction so that what they're having to pay in terms of the 20% is lower. But then when you present the cost of construction for the elements that you want to work on, that's much higher. And so again, the actual tenant improvements, when you multiply, we're going to do the divisions, $102. The actual just the 66,000 for the patio is $125 a square foot. And then your ramp, if I use, I think it was like 550. If I use your number and the square footage, 550. It's $487 a square foot. So the numbers don't make sense to me.
So I don't do pricing, the contractor does pricing. And there is a representative here from the company. Do we need to?
Well, again, I just
Bring them up?
did the numbers as
Yeah.
I think. If it's 350 divided by the square footage, I'm 102. If I just look at the cost of the patio work itself, that patio work is $125 a square foot, which I would expect should be a lot less than the tenant space.
So I haven't done a complete financial analysis like Elizabeth did, but isn't that something that the staff does and goes through and verifies that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, for the policy that was presented to the board years ago, and then again, a couple years ago, more recently, when we see a cause that appears to be low, right, to what we would expect the scope of work to cost, we go to our policy. A policy is using the construction evaluations from the ICC tables, and there's some factors that we use to adjust that depending on the type of work, if it's a tenant improvement, if it's foundation only. Those are the examples given on the policy. So when I looked at this number, 350,000, I run that against those numbers, right? And then we apply the modifier that we had presented to the board a few years back of 9.4%. So once I looked at the type of construction for an office building, B occupancy, multiply that for a new building from the ICC table, apply the adjusted cost per the policy, and then added the local modifier, then I ended up with 233,000 would be the cost per our policy using that agreement. It was still lower than the 350,000. Now by policy, it was within that range of that table from ICC. There is general acknowledgement that the cost of construction for this area is higher, and that's what we had that modifier built in, which was applied for.
So, and that's what we were asking to have reviewed over a couple of years, because the board always felt that those numbers were way low. I mean, I just did a real quick search on the internet, which is, trying to find out. So they're citing, this was from 2023. It says the Southern California, this is for the Cushman and Wakefield, it's just tenant improvements only. San Jose is $226 a square foot. The LA area is $160 a square foot. San Diego is $150. We have $100. We know Santa Barbara's more expensive, so I just questioned the cost of construction. That valuation that you're using from ICC, that clearly says it is not construction costs. It is for permit purposes only. So that's kind of erroneous. And I get that there was a policy that staff, you're not supposed to ask if it still falls within this, but it's not cost of construction. If this group were to get sued, the judge is gonna take a look at cost of construction, the real cost of construction, not what falls within the policy that someone decided was okay. And that decision was only made so that staff would have something to be able to push back at an applicant if the price was too low.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, again, 102 square foot for tenant improvement work, electrical, mechanical, heating, and plumbing, and $125 for just patio work, those numbers don't jive.
Okay, so we're gonna bring up Val with Michelson Construction to address this.
Where would you like me?
When you're ready, just push the button.
Val Knezovic, Michelson Construction. Ask me anything.
Well, I mean, I just explained to you what my concern was. Like, it looks like the cost of the tenant improvements, again, Santa Barbara's a lot more expensive. I know just from talking to the assessor, to talking to appraisers.
I understand.
Cost of construction for a residential is, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, and yet for a tenant improvement, it's $102.
A tenant improvement in a space that's largely there.
Right, but you're redoing all mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Yes, we are. But the
And
place is there.
4 new bathrooms, right?
Pardon me?
And 4 new bathrooms?
No,
And so
the
you're-
bathroom's already there. They're getting modified. It's a very efficient remodel. Right, we're reusing much of a lot of the existing walls are remaining, plus or minus. A lot of the doors are staying. We're using as much as we can. So I don't price anything by square foot. I bid it out. And the scope of work for this is bid out to this budget.
Can you help me understand why the scope of work for the exterior hardscaping is 25% higher than for the interior work?
The blue area?
All of it, the blue area, the red area, everything outside that is being scrutinized for accessibility is priced 25% higher than all of the alterations on the tenant, the improvements the tenant wants. And we see this gamesmanship all the time, so I'd like you to try and justify it.
All right, so this is a flagstone patio, slab on grade with drainage. When you introduce the path directly in front of the radius front, it affects the left side. The drainage, the low point in the drainage is on the right side. So when you put the straight shot to the door, you block off the drainage. That entire patio needs to come up at a new grade. All the flagstone comes out and be put back. Have you priced, remove and replace flagstone patios recently?
I have on projects actually, and demolition is pretty inexpensive, that's.
Okay, how much is new flagstone supply installed per square foot?
Well, I mean, I wasn't looking to see if you were, what the materials were, because you have different, I think,
All right,
people have different materials.
flagstone is like $70 a square foot. So you can do your own budget, it's gonna come up to probably more. What other questions do you have?
Well, this is already mentioned, but I was also out there one time, and I only saw like 4 or 5% of the patio seemed to be at a grade steeper than 5%. And so my question is, why are you moving everything out?
As it is now, can you go to the orange slide? There's one area drain you can see in that
Right here.
orange area here.
There's another one.
Putting the ramp and then the
The drain is right here, I'm circling it.
But that's for the ramp.
Yeah, we're not changing that.
no, that's for the, that is
For the
for
lift.
the lift.
Right, and we're not talking about that, we're talking, why do you wanna change the blue thing and pull
It's a
up?
requirement to get correct access path.
So I mean, I actually went out there with my level 1 tool to see myself. There's only, where that patio equipment is, that's the only place, not the patio.
He just explained though about the high points. If by putting in the 1x1 pavers, you're blocking
You're
out.
preventing the drainage. So now we have to correct the drainage.
So if you only limit it to the areas that were just exceeding the 5%, which is a small part of that patio, that would be accessibility. The rest of it, I'm hearing it's drainage issue, not necessarily accessibility.
We can't provide something and then allow the building to flood. We interrupt the drainage by putting in that level walkway.
So if there was a little bit of a ramp down there and leaving the rest of it alone.
It still doesn't drain. The drain is on the right-hand side.
Okay, so then I'm hearing you saying we have a drainage problem. That you're working together to do the accessibility and the
No,
drainage.
if I'm gonna
together.
price.
Here's what I heard him say. He said that in order to put in the ramp, there will be a drainage problem
Well, there
that
is
you
no
need to
ramp there, there
correct.
is no ramp there now.
Well, we are putting one in.
We're only talking about the blue
Walkway.
area right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the walkway, the access.
Correct, yeah.
So in order to put the access path in properly, that creates a drainage issue that needs to be solved. If that access pathway doesn't go in, then the drainage is fine. Is that
Talking about
correct?
this ramp?
No, this.
This.
Didn't it look-
Yeah,
Talking
if
about-
we don't touch the blue area, the drainage is fine.
Yeah.
If you're gonna allow us to not put in the blue area, then it's fine. So my understanding is that you're requiring us to put in the blue area.
Well, we are, because there's a hierarchy, and that's, first on our hierarchy is the path of travel into the tenant space, right?
Yeah, I think in front of the door and all of that, I don't know if there's some columns there. Yeah, you can see the columns. That seemed to be pretty level. It's just where you turn around that curved stairway where it seemed to exceed the 5%.
So there's a big dip here, and then we do have that table here, right?
So what if you turn that into a counter, into a planter? And so then you remove that portion so the rest can remain, you don't need to do anything to that? If you take out that
Well-
dip, if that's the only part that's out of compliance, would you not create a planter there that then the rest of it would be compliant?
Could you please show me where you, on the other plan?
So this is dipping right here, right? In here, in this area? See where the switched area is. So there's the dip is in here somewhere. So if you were to make that into a planter so that then.
But
people-
that's our path, though, getting in, straight into that door.
But if you walk this way and then just turn it 90 degrees, so you omit that little area, so it's no longer a pathway, it's just a planter. So then you're not having to modify all of that.
Chair Swordman?
May I comment?
If-
You're moving the tiled path to the right then, which does the same consequences are there.
I'm just saying if you remove the portion that's over 5%, so you leave the rest of it, can the rest of it remain there? so you don't have to touch any of the pavement. You just created planter.
How do you do that with flagstone? You can't decide where it starts and stops. You're peeling it up as you need to, and you got to feather it.
I think you can do it.
If I may interrupt just for a second again, Chair Sorgman, these are all really good ideas and good problem solving. I'm just curious to how much it would lessen the cost that they're asking for a hardship for. Because I think even if they did reduce some cost by being creative, and whether that worked or not, I'm not sure, would it still be an exorbitant amount compared to their cost of construction for the interior TI?
So again, my questions, I question the construction costs that they've presented. So if I use the 150, which is the lowest number based on this study, they get to $525,000 cost of construction, which then increases what they're supposed to be spending.
Mhm.
So then some of these other solutions are not so out of scope or out of scale for what they're proposing.
And you said the flagstone was expensive to demo and replace, but are you saying that there's the same demo expenses in creating the ramp as well, and that's why it's 25% more expensive than the tenant improvement?
All right, the ramp has a retaining wall along one side, a low retaining wall,
Yeah.
all right? So the existing 3-foot wide tile sidewalk, all right, it's not even a sidewalk, it's a tiled area.
Yeah.
I walked that many times during the project. It's not comfortable to walk on. I know you're calling it a sidewalk, it's a driveway, people drive on that, right? So
It's raised for
But the question is
It's a
about the
sidewalk.
cost. My question is about
Yes.
the cost.
So that the existing 3-foot wide tiled walkway completely gets demolished.
Yeah,
We have to build a ramp on the drive side,
yeah,
because there's a curb requirement for the
yeah.
correct ramp. And that's a whole new concrete structure coming down the full length. And that length is the minimum required length to meet your slope requirements. There's no way around it.
Okay. And this reported cost of the tenant improvement comports with your estimate, your bid?
It's my estimate, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to point something out that we've seen over and over again and you've heard us discuss before. The patio, like I said, I was out there, there's only a few places that are over the 5%. What we don't like to find out is that you're gonna charge that whole cost, which is $60-some thousand, as an accessibility benefit. And I don't think it is an accessibility benefit. If you're talking about drainage problems, and you
There's-
would take it to, if you just repair the whole patio and redo it and call that accessibility, I don't think that's really fair to what the law wants. Can you
I
discuss
can't
that?
comment on what's fair or not fair. I was asked to put a price for putting in a level pathway within the slope requirements, and I can't do that without correcting the drainage.
We're talking about the patio, not the ramp,
Yeah, the blue area.
okay? And you were asked to do what now? I didn't.
I have to warranty my work. I'm not gonna build a straight pathway and disregard the consequences of interrupting the existing drainage. I have to warranty my work for 10 years. If the area floods, I'm getting a call.
So, Mark, when you were putting or reviewing the plans, because I think you draw them and he has review over them, did you put together any cost estimates or take a look to see?
No, I, like Maurice said, I don't do any cost estimating. We use general contractors to do that.
And so did you take a look to see which one was more viable or what solutions might be,
Relative to cost?
relative to accessibility?
Well, I think they're all viable, yeah, but it's a cost issue for the owner. That's the primary reason for this request for hardship.
Chair Storkman, pardon my interruption. I just want to make sure procedurally that we have the applicant make sure she presented everything she wanted to present in her presentation, and then also want to make sure that we open public comment before we get too much into the back and forth Q&A.
Okay,
All right,
Thank you.
so I think that you were finished with your.
Yes.
Okay, so we were just asking questions. All right, are there any members of the public that would like to make any comments? No? All right, so do board members have any other questions or comments of staff or the applicant? I do want to make a comment part of the staff's report that had to do with the stairs. So I just looked online to see the permit history. I plan checked this building, Lana plan checked this building, Chrissy's plan checked this building. I think it was, I'm not sure of the exact dates, but maybe when the 2010 ADA updated, 2013 CBC is when I think the stairs became not part of a path of travel or an accessible route. But up to that point, I mean, I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different permits that have been issued by the city. I printed up one of the correction lists that talk about identifying all the accessible routes, which at that point would have included the stairs, because they were considered part of the path of travel. And so at that point in time, they would have been required to have stair striping and handrails that were compliant. And over time, things happen. So I think at the very least, we would be requiring the applicant to do that, because it would have been required, should have been done, should have been final during all of those permit periods. The code does not allow you to reduce accessibility. And that's what's happened over time. Someone doesn't understand that that's a requirement, tiles get changed, and then all of a sudden what used to be there is no longer there. And so we've lost what used to be accessible. Because the reality is what we're being asked is to approve something that does not have an accessible route from the upper walkways, from the public way throughout the sites. And we're asking someone who's got a disability, if they're on Coast Village Road, that they have to get into a vehicle, or they have to find some way to go around the back to get to the lower level, which is not fair. I mean, accessibility requirements have been in place since 1991. The expectation was that over time, these buildings would be fixed. Throughout the plan checks, there's constant comments about the doors and the toe kicks and all of that being replaced. And over time, doors get changed and those things get removed. So I think at the very least, all of those things would need to be put back. So does anyone have any
I have a comment on that. That doesn't sound like that would be a big ticket item as far as cost goes.
No, it's not. But it's just, I know that staff made a point of putting it in their report that it's not required. And technically, at this point, because they're not doing anything to the stairs, but it was part of an accessible route at some point, and when the codes changed, then that got removed. But it was in place at some point in its history, and you don't get to say, because it's been removed, we will not require it.
I'm not quite-
Chair Schwabing, if I may, Jose. Yes, the property owner is required to maintain building features that were regulated by the code. To say that it's required with this tenant improvement may not be the appropriate way to enforce or ensure that those elements get reinstalled. There's a property maintenance enforcement
Code compliance
way to handle those things. And we can't require things that aren't required, right? In this permit,
Well, but.
with this permit application, I'm not saying we can't have
Right,
to
but
reinstall those features.
But it's in, 11B, it clearly says you can't remove accessible feature, can't make it less, and somehow it has been removed.
So if
Yeah,
I
I
may,
agree
Madam
with you.
Chair, and sorry, Bill Official, I just, so I can make sure I understand what was stated. Is what you're saying, Madam Chair, that elements were removed, and I don't follow what those elements were that were removed.
I'm saying over the, the 10 permits starting from, I guess, 2003, stair striping would have been required.
But to be completely, to make sure I understand it, but they were not removed, they were always there, from what I'm understanding, and this predates me, and actually you may have more context on this as a plans examiner at the time, those would have been required at the time and they were not. So I can't speak to that, but I can speak to what is in effect at the time the plans are submitted, and what's required for me as a code regulator and representative building official, what can I ask for within the breadth of that? And that is what is currently listed on there. the path of travel, the stairs are not part of the path of travel. If they were to touch the stairs, there's an obligation for them to update the striping and update the handrails. So to go beyond that, it exceeds my purview. As the building official mentioned, there's an obligation for ownership to have maintenance, another obligation at a federal level, which we don't regulate as well. So for the purpose of what we're looking at here for this project and the triggers that are in effect at the time this is submitted, the stairs do not have to be upgraded. I cannot go retroactively and asking for that. The element still remains, it was not removed, so the accessibility was not reduced. So that's like maintenance, possibly, but that's not something that I can regulate based on what's been submitted to us and what is required from me by the building code.
So, question to you. So I have a set of ramp or stairs that had a handrail at some point. Someone removed the handrail. So you're gonna say they don't need to put the handrail back?
If that's a ramp, that is an element of the path to travel obligations, that ramp would have to be repaired and be put back. The stair would not, unless they're touching it. That is the responsibility of the ownership to make sure that the property is maintained. If that element was removed from something that is not regulated by the path to travel obligations, they need to repair it, but I don't have the authority to request for them unless there is a complaint, and then through that channel, and maybe the building official has a different opinion, but that is the limitation. So me as the building code regulator and representative of the building official can request based on what the code is asking me to do.
And Chair Swartman, that is exactly what I said. We can do it through another process, but not a requirement of this permit application because it doesn't involve that area. The improvements don't include the stairs for path of travel upgrades.
Right.
But through property maintenance code, we can.
But we could ask them to do it, right?
No.
Yes,
You as the
or-
board,
Yeah, we can.
you can suggest it, yes.
All right, does anyone else have any questions? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Can I make one more comment before you guys decide on motion? Just keeping in mind that maximum accessibility is what our goal is. And these existing structures, existing sites, the building code's intent is not to require an applicant to spend a disproportionate cost for accessibility upgrades. So just keeping that in mind. Of course, we always try to get, and we always require accessibility to the minimum and maximums of the code. But there are allowances, there are exceptions in the code that allow applicants to request these hardships in cases like this.
So I have a question. Did you want to
Go ahead,
say what you were going to say?
go ahead.
So can someone tell me what the next step is? And I have a reason for asking that.
I was just gonna ask the members if they had any other comments or questions that they wanted to ask, and then to see if anyone.
So the only comment I have is that the law does not provide any maximum. When you're over the threshold, you have to go into full compliance unless you can prove a hardship. I don't feel like a hardship has been proven here, and it strikes me as very unfair that nearly every hardship that's come before this board has been ratified. Every time somebody wants to get out of an elevator requirement, they come to this board and expect us to allow that. And I can't abide it.
John, do you have any comments?
No.
I'm unit art also, and only from the angle of the cost of construction. I just don't think that these are accurate, and so I question that. Jim, do you have anything?
It's back to reasonable hardships. If Ty Warner or Elon Musk was building this, would we still have to talk about no elevator because they can't afford it? We're always told, as Nick said, every elevator in town is always a hardship to somebody. No one wants to build anything they don't have to. We understand that. Profit's your motive, right? Accessibility is our motive. So I don't know, the fairness here is weird. And I'll just say something else about this accessible path of travel. That is for people in wheelchairs and other disabilities, but it's wheelchair accessible. I work with a bunch of blind people. Stair striping and handrails are necessary for those people, but since it's not a path of travel, it's not required. So that is totally unfair in the code, or however we look at those plans. But you understand that no stair striping and no handrails requirement is okay, but you must have, the wheelchairs must be able to get some of this. I think the whole patio thing is I'll just say it's a farce to me, to pay $67,000 when only a far small percentage of that place is not to code as far as the 5%. And I don't know why the whole thing is to count as an accessibility expense.
So,
I think it's a comment, I don't think it's a question.
Okay.
Paul, do you have anything to say?
Did you want to make a comment?
the next step is a vote, right? I have one comment before that, but go ahead.
Okay. All right, so I'll comment a little bit on what Nick mentioned and everything. You know, I think it's great that we have the accessibility law and that they'll require at least 20% of improvements goes toward accessibility. So, you know, the accessibility access has really improved since this law went into effect. I really like the idea that, you know, owners need to improve their property from time to time, and we have architecture, and this town is special. And I'm also, you know, thinking about, you know, not only the handicapped in this town, but just everybody. So when things become so expensive, then price goes up for everybody. And I think that the 20% is reasonable if they can do a little bit more to get an accessible path that's fully compliant, that's great. But when it's in amounts that are in this category for this project, I think it's definitely an unreasonable hardship because there's a budget for everything. And of course, the owners are putting in probably as much money as they can afford to improve this, to make things work financially for them. So I'm in favor of, and I also really value the input that the building department does. I think the staff is very qualified, and I tend to go with, you know, trust them that they've done a proper job looking at this and working with the applicant. So, you know, I'm in favor of supporting the hardship that the building official recommends.
So are you making a motion then?
I think the applicant has a comment they want to make before we vote.
So I'm having a very difficult time reconciling in my mind when I worked with you on this property back in 2020 and you wore a different hat, and then what's happening today. So I'm trying to be very respectful because I highly respect your position on this board. Do you know where I'm going with this? Okay. So back in 2020 with the Sotheby's project, you were the senior plan examiner. And you found a very rare, obscure exception in order to not require. So the exception was the 11B 202.4 requirement. Do you remember that? Okay. So it was a very rare exception that we used in order not to require an elevator or a lift or a ramp.
So for this property or for the one next door?
No, for this property, for the Sotheby's. So then I was told by you that then we will be able to process this without, there's a typo, without be required to obtain ratification from the board. So I guess.
So there is an exception for elevators, certain square footage and,
Right.
but when, it doesn't have medical offices, and you had a medical office there. The dentist's office has been there for a while, so, and that was out of complaint at that point. I didn't realize that you were putting in a medical office.
But I guess I'm thinking of the spirit of this.
My only question, again, for me, my heartburn is cost of construction. I just don't think that it's accurate.
Chair Sorkin, is there something that the board would like to see from the applicant that would give them a better sense or better buy-in to their construction costs? A more detailed breakdown? Is there anything that you could think of collectively that you would require them to show?
And for me, it's just cost of construction. That's always been a struggle, even as staff members, so, you know, people not being honest about what construction costs were. And so again, using ICC valuations, they clearly state these are not construction costs. It just, I think, is not appropriate to use as the baseline for when we challenge someone's pricing.
So Chair, can I ask if they used Marshall Swift or
Means.
RS Means, would that satisfy the board's questioning of the cost of construction?
Can I comment real quick? We got Exhibit E that's a quote for construction costs for the changes by Michelson Construction. It's signed. It's got a breakdown and it's an accurate cost. We were told by Val that he did the same thing for the costs he came up with in the first place. I've been looking at construction costs on a daily basis for years. They're all over the place. I can't give anyone an idea other than getting it from a general contractor like this to find out what something's gonna cost. I'm surprised sometimes they come in lower than I think, and I'm surprised sometimes they come in higher than I think. But when you've got a general contractor who's given you a quote that's signed, I don't know how you can question it. Square footage costs don't work. There's so many exceptions to square footage costs. It sounds great, and there's a lot of people who look at it, and you look at a lot of different projects, and they come in at different numbers. But when it comes to a specific project, there's always something unique about it that steers the cost. And when you've had a contractor break it down and come up with a number, I think you have to trust that. Unless you have, you know, some reason to debate it and using the metric the city did or another metric, I don't think you're gonna find that the number's very far from what you would expect.
So
Thank you, John. That was actually really helpful for me. I appreciate that.
So do we have a motion? Does someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the ratification of hardship that's the building official has presented.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Want to take a vote?
Thank you, Chair Sorkman. I'll go ahead and take the vote. Board Member Marston.
No.
Board Member Maloney. Board Member Coots.
Yes.
No.
Vice Chair Spieler.
Yes.
And Chair Sorkman.
No.
Motion fails.
Do we want to give direction?
Elizabeth, why don't you give direction since you have brought up issues with the cost of the project?
I mean, cost of construction has always been a tough one. It's just, even when I was working as staff, it was something that they were all over the board. I would have contractors sign something that we knew was not accurate, but we've been challenging. So I don't have the same confidence that John has about that. I still think, you know, the ramp on that driveway side, I mean, there is the possibility of, you know, the building official, for site constraints, that you can reduce that to 3 feet. If you can put the landing on the other side, so it's not going into the driveway, so that you're not necessarily impacting, maybe you're not having to move that curb at all. So I don't know if that would be something that you would be comfortable doing. But there is a code section that allows that when you have a site
sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair. Just want to make sure that we don't send the appellant or anybody out down the wrong path in this. So there is an exception or an allowance in the building code, Chapter 11B, that allows the building official, when there are certain site constraints, to reduce an accessible route to 36 inches. However, when it comes to a ramp, that ramp still needs to meet those tolerances, the 48 inches clear, the protection. So for this particular case, that will not work. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Right, that's for sidewalks.
Okay, you're right, you're right. Yeah, for me, it's just the cost of construction.
Am I allowed to comment? So we're still not addressing the I think what I'm hearing, am I hearing you say that you're pointing toward the ramp option? Is that what I'm hearing? We're still not addressing the financial feasibility for an owner that has had a 3,000 square foot suite vacant for over 3 years and just lost 2 7-year leases. I am representing the owner. He is ready. He's had this beautiful building for 35 years. This whole process is making him wonder, do I sell my building? I mean, it's 3,000 square feet, vacant for over 3 years, and he has lost 2 7-year leases. The broker is sitting here who lost 2 leases. Like, it's affecting, it's a 3,000 square foot suite. And he's being asked to spend, I know that the budget might get modified a little bit, but we're still talking 86% of the cost of construction for the ramp. It's 3,000 square feet. I mean, do you know how frustrating that would be? And
One question, who are you blaming for the 3-year delay? We only heard about this 2 months ago, so don't bring it to us and say it's been 3 years.
it's the market. And he finally, he went through COVID with this suite vacant. I'm just saying he just had 2 very viable leases.
I understand the lease part, but I don't understand why 3 years of no income is somehow the fault of anyone else's.
I'm not blaming anyone. It has to do with COVID and the market right now. There's plenty of vacant spaces in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand, I'm representing the owner here.
We understand that.
Yeah.
Chair and board members, is there, since the vote has already taken place, is there anything that you want to request of the applicant to consider to bring back? We've already voted no, but it seemed as if there was going to be direction after that for further consideration, maybe.
Chair Storkman to the board, so since we have had one vote to accept the ratification of hardship and that has failed, we do have kind of 2 options now. We either have another vote to deny the ratification of hardship completely, or to continue the item with comments to the applicant for them to come back to the board. So we could entertain another motion, but it would have to be kind of those 2 options, and if it is comments to the board, it would have to be communally agreed on.
I have a comment or a question for Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, you mentioned you weren't as confident with these estimates that were presented and signed by the contractor that John explained. Maybe you could have the contractor walk you through these estimates so you might feel a little bit more comfortable with them.
I don't need that. I mean, it was the same thing when I was working at the city. We were constantly having these struggles of what represented accurate cost. And again, if you were to get sued, it doesn't matter what numbers we use or what ratification was approved. If someone, you're basically have a site that's not accessible. And so if you get sued, the judge will take a look at the total monies that have been spent in that time period that they look at. So the hard construction cost, not what you presented to a board, not what you presented to the building department. And that's just this has been an issue, and that's why we asked for the city to kind of take a look look at what costs of construction are used by other cities, City of San Diego, City of Los Angeles, and it cannot be the ICC valuations. It clearly states in their documentation that those are permit fees only, not construction costs. I spoke to the person who generated that list, and he laughed and said, you guys are not supposed to be using this for construction valuation, for construction costs. And yet that's what the city staff uses, because that was what was established by the building official, which I'm not in agreement with, but, you know, that's a whole different story. So costs of construction are always, it's always this struggle of, you know, putting in a price for total construction costs that are too low. The cost of what's being done for accessibility is a higher number, which is why I kind of just did the math to say, you know, when you look at these numbers, they don't seem to make sense. How is it that it's $102 for a tenant improvement, but $125 for doing a patio? Maybe you don't use flags. I'm not quite sure, but it's just, but those are the things that are incongruent to me, that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, the vote has taken place and there may be some other vote or other actions to be taken. And we will be coming back as requested earlier with construction evaluation. This predates the current building official, myself, when I used to be a board member, was presented to us. And we as the board at that time, me being a member, we moved it forward. And the building code doesn't tell us where to go to get this construction cost. It defines what is adjusted construction cost. So however this came to be predating us, there was some rationale behind it. Whether it's time to view it differently, this may be a good time. I just want the board to keep in mind what it is that we have now as current policies for the city and current requirements for the building code. And I look forward to presenting more options to you as far as adjusted construction costs, since the building code really is absent given its direction when it comes to determining construction costs, because that's not something we as building departments do. We look at the regulations for the actual technical requirements for access.
So I've mentioned a couple times that the law does not have a ceiling. There's no maximum. And whoever passed the law at the time didn't feel that there was a need for a maximum. Maybe there should have been. But I think that that's a very subjective number, or objective number. And for me, the threshold is 200-300% of the value. That's what accessibility is worth to me. That's where I start to feel sorry for a developer when it gets up to be 200 or 300% of the cost, not at 86, 90%. That accessibility is invaluable to me and people like me.
Does anyone want to make any other motion? No? I will take a look at this more closely, and maybe I'll email you something and then you can share that with the applicant.
Sure.
So that gives me a bit of time to kind of think about it.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
So are we making a motion to continue the item for the next meeting date?
We do need a motion to either deny the ratification of hardship and that ends the item completely, or to continue indefinitely with comments. You can make comments for either staff to come back to the board with, different numbers for construction costs. You can ask for the applicant to provide more information, but we do need some sort of concrete direction that is voted on by the majority of the board and passes.
So in terms of a path forward, I don't see a way there with costs, right? Without playing with the numbers, which doesn't work. But I would be open to seeing another solution for accessibility. If you can provide it in another way, I'd be open to continuation.
So are you making a motion to continue this project?
I'm just saying, if we're looking at paths forward,
Okay.
the applicant should know that the only way I'm going to see this forward is with a compliant, accessible path of travel. Whether that's a lift, a ramp, and some other route, they're not going to convince me that this is a 300% cost for improvement. So I will not see, I cannot see a hardship here on costs. So a different solution for accessibility could continue this applicant forward, I suppose.
Would any member like to make a motion to continue the project?
I have another comment. So, your issue or concern is questioning the construction cost. And that is your concern and reason why you didn't uphold the building official's decision. Right. In Exhibit E, the cost for those two options are basically a contract. Michael's Construction's saying, this is what we're gonna charge you for. So I don't know that we can really question that. So your question is the cost of the remodel of the space being less than you think it should be. Right, the 300.
I mean, this board has always struggled with information.
I know, but that's, so the
Well,
300.
on both sides, on both sides, the
The
cost.
350,000 is the issue. I think it should be more.
I think it should be more.
Okay, but if Michelson Construction were to enter into a contract or give a signed quote showing a dollar amount that's close to that, would you agree with what the building official has determined? Basically, it's saying that is the construction cost. It's not a guess, it's not an estimate. We're gonna do it, it's gonna cost this much.
I thought I asked that question, if that tenant improvement was what he bid. The figure that we're given on this application was what he bid, and I understood him to say yes.
We didn't have it as an exhibit.
Okay.
I must have missed that.
Or he misunderstood what I was asking. That's possible too.
Can we ask Val to come back to the?
Mr. Michelson, can you come back and address that, please? Thank you.
What's the question?
The 350,000, is that a bid amount?
Yes.
So that is an actual quote and signed, and that's what Michelson Construction's gonna charge to do the work?
Yes.
So from my perspective, it's not questionable that it's a low amount or an estimate that someone put in. That's what you're going to charge to do the work. Okay, thanks. I wasn't clear on this. Is that clear anything up for you? No.
Does anyone want to make a motion to continue the project?
I have a question real quick, because I agree with John. So are you questioning that the contractor's not telling the truth, that that's the bid that he would do the work for?
I guess so. No, I'm sorry. I mean, it wasn't enough of these places where information was given and then it ended up being a lot more. I mean, I can give you examples where we have signed contracts for some of the hotels on State Street. And then when they have their grand opening, you know, they're saying that they spent 11 million when their paperwork said 300, 400,000.
Yeah.
So I'm just very skeptical of the numbers. And I look to others to see, I mean, I'm an architect, I'm practicing, so I know the construction costs of some of the projects that I work on. They're a lot more than what you said to me. I worked on commercial projects, so I just have heartburn about the pricing, that's all.
Madam Chair, would it be acceptable to have the applicant provide construction estimates from Marshall and Swift or RS Means?
Comment if that's something you're requesting. I don't use any of those. Everything I price is individually.
Yeah, you're calling up and getting quotes, material and
Yeah.
everything else, yeah.
It's just
You're doing a takeout.
Yeah, it's not
Facilitated.
representative for this area. Every project is so unique.
Yeah.
Square foot pricing, throw it out the window. It doesn't apply here, right?
those two programs are a little bit more detailed than actual construction
Not
costs for
enough.
materials and
Insurance companies
stages.
use those. They don't apply to this area. Actually, I don't know where they apply.
Are you saying that they're normally less or more than what the cost is?
It doesn't apply. Every single project is looked at for its specific needs.
I understand.
I bid out every single line item and get quotes. We try to be as efficient as we can, reuse as much as we can, as you would want us to. So if you have I don't know how to answer your question or comments to, it should be more.
Yeah, and Madam Chair and Board, the applicant has met the requirements of the current policy that we have in place that was approved by the board. True, the board wants us to reevaluate that policy, and we plan to do that. That was requested again this meeting, so at our next meeting. But the applicant has met the requirements of our current policy, and they have provided contractual agreements with the contractor.
So I'm going to ask the question again, does anyone want to make a motion to continue the project?
I'll make a motion to continue the project.
Do we want to include any comments into that motion?
No.
What would we like the applicant to come back with?
That's what she just asked. I just
Do
told
we,
you.
do we have a second first?
I'll second.
And you can, if you want to discuss anything, you can, and then we'll take a vote.
Okay. So what should the applicant come back with?
Would we want to ask them to get another price to review?
Like from another contractor?
I have a question that might add some clarity for everyone. Does everyone have kind of a gut feeling or objectively at what point the percentage constitutes a hardship? Because for me, it's, something over 200% for the accessibility. There is no cap, there is no max. It could be 1,000% under the law. So I think we all have our own threshold, and
Member Coons, there is a requirement for maximum accessibility if you're over the valuation threshold.
Yep.
However, the code does recognize that even sometimes in those instances, there could be a request for hardship for costs. So it's part of the code because.
I understand, and so we all have our own objective determination of what constitutes a hardship, and we can continue this on forever. But what's the point if they're never going to clear that threshold for every voting member of this board, or a majority of the board?
Well, I think a point would be that the appellant wouldn't do the project, they would abandon it, and then you have less accessibility than if they would have went through with it. So
That's a
by
point.
letting the project go through, we improve accessibility.
If it's not built, there's nobody using it, right? So, I don't understand.
And then it hurts everybody. It hurts us, it hurts the handicapped or disability people, it hurts the public.
How does it hurt the public if something's not open? Look at State Street, it's like 1/3 empty. Is that hurting the public?
Yes.
It hurts the city because you don't get the taxpayer
I
dollars.
understand that. You said the public.
All right,
So we have a motion on the table. If
continue,
we
right?
can, if there's more discussion on it, we can keep discussing, but otherwise we need to take a vote.
Just take a vote. Are you willing to allow it to come back as a continuous? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So continue the project. Any comments? Do we want to add anything about adding the
I
bid?
have a quick comment.
Sure.
I have a comment. Does the appellant know what they need to do to come back?
No.
Okay, so we need to give them direction.
So, do you have any direction to give them?
I think we need to come up with a percentage that we all agree on, or a way to verify the construction costs, or both. And if we can do
So-
that, and they can meet that, then they can come back.
For me, I don't see such an issue with the construction cost percentages presented today. It does seem a little unfair that the tenant improvements, including plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and finish work would be cheaper than the demo and hardscaping, but I will accept the contractor's explanation and say, okay, fine, I don't have any more qualms with the valuations, but I still don't see a hardship here. I think that the accessibility lost is worth the 80 to 90% extra, and I don't think that there's a limit to what that should be. So I don't see a path forward for the applicant other than a path to compliance. For my vote, I'm only one.
Can I ask a question? I know you can't give me a dollar amount, but if you look at the leases that you're gonna get over a 10-year period for 3 different spaces, right? That's a lot of money, correct?
I don't have purview to that, to what the lease agreements were. That's not. I can't answer that. Somebody else can, but I can't.
I just want to point out that if you have 10 years of income from 3 leases, then a couple $100,000 is not going to be a big hardship to you.
And we're talking about less than $100,000, right?
Pardon?
No.
Sorry.
No, we're talking 219,000
Sorry.
something.
Less than 100% is what I was thinking.
Yeah, I have, may I make one more comment? So I just want to make a comment about the current space, and because it was Montecito Dental, this may help you understand the pricing. It has an overabundance of plumbing. It has an overabundance of a lot of things. So that's partly why they can do it for $350,000. There's electrical everywhere, there's plumbing everywhere. I mean, it's not a normal space because it was Montecito Dental. So that may help you understand the pricing.
Do you have a threshold for where you think it's a hardship?
I would say at least 60 or 70% in my mind.
So 160%.
But I would also say, if you want to get some traction here, perhaps look at the blue space patio and forget putting in your expensive flagstone. If you can't do it, Elizabethson, which was a split planter, and it blocks the 5% of the spaces,
The section is not compliant.
then why do we have to have flagstone here? That would take them out of the accessibility package and give you a place to spend some more money on accessibility.
So may I comment? So I say this at the risk of, I've been told today that I don't care about accessibility, which is very far from true. But as architects and designers, we have to look at the project holistically. We right? I mean, can you help support this? I mean, we don't just put things here and there. We have to look at the whole thing. Does it respect the architecture of the building? Does it, I mean, it's not just, that's our job. Of course, our number one job is the health and safety and welfare of the public. We know that.
Correct.
But we have to look at this holistically. We have an owner, we have a very beautiful building, we have respect the architecture of the building. It's not like we just put things in willy-nilly. It's a holistic approach. I don't know if you want to comment.
No, I totally agree with everything that Maureen just said. Don't just cover things up and work around it.
So is there a percentage, so the 160% is what you're,
I said 60 or 70%.
Well,
so,
we're over that.
yeah.
Well,
There- So,
okay, 80%, 90.
Well, right, they're at 90 now, so
I never thought about it. I don't have a number. I just know that
at what point does it feel like a hardship to you? You're saying 90, so then you should be feeling this is a hardship.
me,
Yeah, so if 90% over the total improvement, it feels like a hardship to you, then you should have voted to ratify,
well, the whole thing has to do with who's got the deep pockets.
right?
Like you
So,
said, if it's Elon Musk or,
well, but we don't know who the,
okay, I know we don't. So
Yeah.
I can't say what I think a
hardship.
I mean, you can see that we're all struggling with what
Yeah.
direction to be
Well,
consistent.
kind of what I went off of was the building department deals with this all the time,
Yeah.
and they determined it was a hardship.
Respectfully, they
With a
don't deal
metric-
with it well all the time.
Understood, but they see a lot of it, and they have a metric that they use to determine that.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time to create the report, and in their opinion, it was a hardship.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And Board Member Coontz, we've spent a lot of time and resources in training staff for accessibility specifically, and we do a really good job with accessibility. I'm sorry to hear that you feel that we don't, but I just want you to know, over the last 3 years, we've had a specialist come in, John Caparelli, and train us to certify for CASP inspection, or CASP certification. We have 2 staff members waiting for their results. We have 3 other staff members that are certified currently. So we put a lot of emphasis in our building department on accessibility. And maybe you're not aware of that, but I wanted to make you aware of that.
I
because of your
appreciate that,
comment.
and to be fair, much of my opinion is based in a long history that you had no part of. And
Decades.
yes, right?
Yeah.
So I did not mean that as a personal offense.
And if I may,
I love
Madam-
elevators.
Right.
If I may, Madam Chair, and to the point of Board Member Maloney and Board Member Coontz, there is gonna be a level of comfort that we're each gonna have with a percentage, right? There is a level of professionalism that we all have and respect for one another, as the building official just mentioned. We have a lot of training that we put. You have a history with the board and the city of things that we've done. Our goal is to make sure that we apply the minimum building codes as they need to be, knowing that there is that, like we have here, there's a level of subjectivity as to what one may feel comfortable with, the percentage that may be a hardship. But in what we see on a regular basis and with the tools we've been given, the building official and myself, the CAS, we feel like that what's been presented to you is a hardship. Whether that each one of you individually look at that as well, that's where you're trying to assess here and give direction to the appellant. The board is not necessarily deciding on fixing problems, but we do want to give them direction along with us as staff, right? So what would be the next steps for them? With the percentage that we presented to you, the 86, 93, building official, and myself, we feel like that constitutes a hardship. Now, as you collectively, as a board, feel that that is the case, my personal views of accessibility and what the thresholds should be, whether that goes to like it should be higher, it doesn't matter as a code regulator, it's what's in front of me. So I just urge the board to take into consideration as we give the appellant some direction as you are deciding to move it forward. Like, what are the next things that you need that are tangible, quantifiable, that will give you that answer that you're looking for?
Did we vote on whether we should continue this project?
No, we have not. It's still on the table.
We're trying
You
to
can't
give
continue it
direction.
unless we tell them
Okay,
that they need to.
so I guess one thing that might make me feel more inclined to see this as a hardship is if the owner of the building proved to not be of means to afford this. I think anybody who owns Coast Village Road property probably has the money to make the required improvements. If this person is truly not of means and he's hanging on to this for his livelihood, barely, then I would be more empathetic to the hardship. But so that's where I'm at. If this person is a investor and a developer, or has multiple properties, and then I don't believe that this becomes a non-viable project.
That's a good point, Nick. I was gonna say, if the guy's waited 3 years
Yeah.
empty, then he
Yeah,
can.
why didn't he lower his rent over 3 years? That's the thing I never understood about commercial property. What?
Excuse me, but that's not respectful to the owner.
Okay.
Comments. I don't feel that that's a respectful comment to the owner.
Why, what?
What's not respectful? Why didn't
I
he?
don't think that we need
Just
we
tell us.
don't wanna joke about the space being vacant for 3 years.
Now, you mentioned it, ma'am. You told us it was vacant for 3 years. I'm just saying, I'm repeating what you
But
said.
we don't wanna take that lightly, because of this, where I'm,
You're
where
making
I'm.
this personal. I didn't say lightly. I just said exactly what you said. 3 years it's been vacant.
He
So
just
therefore,
lost 2 tenants because of this process, and I think we need to tread on that lightly.
Okay,
Thank
then
you.
don't bring it up again. But the point is,
Oh, Chair Sorgman,
Yes.
I think it would be best if we could come up with something for the applicant to work on to come back, because it sounds like, I know there hasn't been a vote yet, that some of you were willing to have this item continued. So is there anything that you guys can come up with collectively to advise the applicant on what would be considered if we continued?
I guess, I would explore to see, is there any possibility of putting a ramp where you had proposed to put the elevator? Is there enough room to be able to make that happen?
You're talking about, I think you're talking about the lift, not the elevator.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry.
The lift.
Is it, did you put that at all?
May I comment?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I overheard, you're asking if the ramp can you ask the same question that you asked Marie?
In the area where originally, which is this area here that's up against Coast Village Road,
Yes, I see it.
is there any way maybe that a ramp would work in that area?
The run and rise
So yeah.
required to get from the sidewalk of Coast Village Road down to the ground floor level is the same as what's already highlighted on the, I believe it was red. That's the length of the total
Correct.
rise and run. We just don't have that in that area.
Correct, and we actually had to make the 90-degree
Correct.
in order to get the run that we
There's
needed.
not, it's been explored, there's not enough room in that area.
And then I heard you comment on, or ask about putting the landings inside of or to the right side. That's a tall retaining wall, so there's gonna be significant costs providing landings on the inside.
Some kind of cantilever concrete slab?
Well, I'd have to demolish the top of the wall and cantilever it. If you have a way that's gonna be less expensive than slab on grade with a low retaining wall on the other side, I'm happy to hear it.
Val, that also encumbers, that retaining wall right there is open to the lower level, and there's a door there.
Correct.
So I don't believe, we can't, yeah.
I think we all know it's gonna cost more to go to the right than to stay in the existing laneway.
Does anyone have any other comments? I mean, my issues, I'm kind of in agreement with Nick in terms of, I just don't feel it's a hardship. And I question, again, cost of construction. You've had tons of permits over time that at some point should have connected these buildings. So it just seems unfair that we haven't at this point achieved being able to get from the upper to the lower sites.
So I have a question for the board. Is the board willing to just deny the project and then there would be no improvements, including accessible improvements on this property?
I mean, they could come back with projects that are under the threshold and they're doing 20%. I mean, when you're under the threshold, you're allowed to spend a maximum of 20. When you're over the threshold, then you are, you're required to make it accessible or go through the path of what they did, which is to come and apply for hardship. Cumulatively over 3 years, you'll get all of the construction costs for those 3 years when a permit comes in. So, what the code doesn't want is for someone to drag it out. So that's why they say put it to 3 years. Regardless of what this board decides, if someone decides to sue, you guys don't have, you can get sued because you haven't yet provided accessibility. This isn't a defense. If someone can't get from one area because they've got dropped off, and, but God forbid something happens that they go down that other area, because that's the way that they're gonna try. That there's liability for the property owner.
It's understood.
So, I mean, it's a liability now.
So, to my way of thinking, the only reason to continue this is if you think there's some way you can convince at least one more board member that this is truly a financial hardship for the property owner. So if I would be willing to hear that argument again. I don't want to shut it down, but if somebody wants to offer up a continuance to give you that opportunity to convince one or more of these board members that this really is a financial hardship for the owner, I'd be willing to hear it, but.
So we do have the motion on the table to continue. We could add the comment that Board Member Kuntz mentioned, saying for the applicant to come back with more information to prove the hardship. But we do have the motion on the table, so we can leave it at continue the item indefinitely, or we can add Mr. Kuntz's comment. Either way, we do need a vote.
It's a matter of process, procedure. We can't require them to provide financials, but as a member of this board, I can tell you that's what it would take to convince me, I believe, and I don't think that there's any problem with that. I need to understand the financial viability of this project in order to see a hardship. And I don't see it with what's been presented.
So the motion then, can we vote on the motion to continue the project?
Just a comment.
Thank you. So I'm asking, or trying to get direction from the board. My understanding is that Mr. Kuntz will not accept a hardship, period. It's not financial, and I understand that. John Maloney, it's a hardship. Paul Spieler, you believe it's a hardship. Ms. Orban, you also stated it's, or expressed it's not a hardship, that no budget figures would satisfy you. And Mr. Marston, you seem to have an opinion of what a hardship was, 60%. You kept edging it up until you heard that we met that hardship. And now I don't understand how to satisfy your requirements on this.
Okay, I wasn't ready for that question, and I got it from Nick. My feeling is this: the hardship should be on the owner, because part of that thing, and Jose can probably spell it out better than me, but it says it won't be built if this isn't done. And we know that that is just a ruse. Every time a hardship comes here for an elevator, it gets accepted every time, no matter how rich the pockets are, whether it's Elon Musk or Billy or whatever. It's just, oh, it's a hardship. We don't even know who the owner is, and if that's a hardship for him. So I would say, if you want to get this rolling, you should ask your owner over a 20-year period or 3 leases, you know, what actually could he expect to pay out extra to get this thing rolling? You know, you add up all the income from 20 years and 3 leases, I think that this is not a hardship anymore. So that's how I feel about hardships. It should be to the owner, not to some silly percentage.
I would have to see that he can't qualify for a loan to carry the expense. That's what you do in business.
Yeah, Madam Chair, to Board Member Marston, the hardships are there, right, to show whether something is feasible or not, right? In relationship to what the cost of construction of the adjusted cost of construction as defined by the building code. So, at its core, the board feels like that number is not adequate, or as Board Member or Madam Chair mentioned, she just doesn't trust that number from our licensed contractor. There's nothing that we can do about that. You know, we as building officials, that we see these numbers regularly, whether the base of the policy is right or wrong is what we have right now, because otherwise we don't have any guidance from the building code. Based on that, this is a hardship. There is no requirement from us as building officials to ask an owner to, in a way, put their financials in a trial in this board to show whether they have a disability or not. We just look at, and maybe this gives a little context, but what the code also says is we look at improvements over a 3-year cycle. For member Marsh, as you mentioned, like what does this look like for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years? Well, within the code, we're looking at 3-year cycles for the purpose of applying accessibility. So maybe this offers some guide or perspective into like what constitutes that hardship over X amount of time.
And board members, if I could just add to that, going back to the intent of the code and a comment that the applicant's representative made about looking at a project holistically, I think these exceptions or the provision that someone can ask for a hardship, even if they're over the threshold, has to do with what we consider, in this case the board, reasonable. And the viewpoint from myself and staff for this project was that it is not reasonable to have to spend 89% to meet this requirement. So that's why we're here though. It's what do you all consider reasonable for a hardship request?
All right, so can we take the vote to continue?
To continue indefinitely, and that's it. Okay, perfect. Board Member Marston.
Yes.
Board Member Maloney.
Yes.
Board Member Kuntz.
Sure.
Vice Chair Spieler.
Yes.
And Chair Sorvin.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
May I ask a question? How do we address continue indefinitely? We don't know how to address that.
Convince us this is a hardship. Convince me that this project will not go forward without this hardship ratification. That's where you gotta get me. I don't believe that this project will not go forward.
So I still don't know what continue indefinitely means. I don't know what that means.
You can come back at any point when you have additional information, you can submit again. There is no timeline, you can submit when you feel like you've got more additional information that will help you. So that's up to you. You can come back next month.
That's what that means.
Yeah, you can come back next month if you want to.
Okay.
No, not next
Or,
month.
I'm sorry.
We wouldn't have enough time
Okay,
to
sorry.
get the packet ready. We can work with you on the next available date to let you know what it would be.
So it's not gonna be in December, so
It
the
can't be in December.
earliest would be January. So, okay.
And if we can get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Perfect. Meeting adjourned at 4:59. Thank you.